So jumping into the video already, it's gonna be very long, so if you want to pause the video, go get a pen, paper, take notes, all that, I will do that right now. But I'm taking Danessa Meyericks Goddess Illuminating Veil. It's just like a liquid highlight. It's like a bronze goldy color, and I did mix it with a little bit of a serum that I had just to kind of water the product down, so whenever you're applying it, it goes on a bit more sheer. And I am using Pat McGrath's Buffer 003 brush. And we were going for a very skinny, like pinched nose. So whenever you're applying that liquid highlighter on your nose, you want to just make sure that the line is very straight. So to, like in between the brows, you can kind of start buffing it up as you get into the forehead. But when you're working on the bridge of the nose, you just want to make sure that it's super thin and it's super straight. And I always like to deposit most of the product right in between the eyes and then kind of fade everything else out. And of course, since it's going on the high points of the face, you want to do the cupid's bow, the chin, the cheekbones, the ears, all of that. And I am using a Pat McGrath foundation brush. I think it's a Sublime Perfection, and then also in a little bit you'll see me switch where it's like the same exact brush, it's just a little bit smaller, and it's also from Pat McGrath. And I'm applying Pat McGrath Sublime Perfection foundation in the shade Medium Deep 27, and I'm applying that only in like the center of her face, and on the outer perimeter I am applying the same foundation but in a deeper shade. It's Deep 34. And you can see I'm not really creating any harsh lines or anything like that. I'm kind of just blending the two products together. And it was my first time trying her foundation, and I'm kind of obsessed. I feel like you can really sit there and layer it like however many times, and it's never gonna look cakey. And as I said earlier, we are going for that very pinched, like skinny nose. So before you apply like any cream contour or anything, I feel like it's important for you to kind of get your foundation or color corrector and kind of blank out the nose, just because I feel like you're almost like hiding the natural shadow that's there, so you can go in and create a new one. So like always, I'm kind of just slowly building up the product so I can get more coverage. You can kind of go in and add a lot if you wanted to. I mean, I just like to sit there and like slowly add it because sometimes I don't like it to be super heavy. I like a lot of makeup, but I don't like it to look like a lot of makeup. And I'm just patting. I'm not really putting too much pressure either. Now this is an Anastasia, I want to say it's number 18, the brush. And then I was using Fenty matchsticks in the shade Caviar. So again, very pinched, snatch nose. So I'm starting from a little bit like where the nostril is, and then working my way straight up. So it's literally just a straight line, that's all I'm doing. And I'm kind of dragging it outwards, like towards her under eye, but not too far out. Because the wider you make it, the wider the nose is gonna look. And if you want to go for that pinched nose, you kind of want to keep everything very tight and precise. And I kept a lot of this in just so you can really see that like I'm not rushing with it, I'm taking my time. You just want to really make sure that that line is super straight. And even if it's not, it's fine, just because we are going to be going over it with like concealer, more foundation, all of this stuff, just to kind of make it like, I don't know, super skinny. And I'm adding a little bit more of that Caviar just at the tip of the nose to kind of lift it up a little bit. Now, this is Danessa Myricks Vision Cream Cover. It's like foundation. You can also use it as concealer because it's super full coverage. This is a little bit lighter than that foundation that I used earlier in the center of her face. So it's almost like a pre-highlight before I add the brighter color. And I'm using an Anastasia number 3 brush. Now, the color that I'm applying right there, it is L6 from Pat McGrath. It's like my skin tone. I do like to place that like at the very, very high point of the face, just so it's not like too light everywhere. It's just like where you want it. So you can see I applied it like at the higher bridge of the nose, and then kind of, I'm gonna let it sit there, but I am gonna blend out like towards the forehead. So there's that same Danessa Myricks Vision Cream Cover with the MAC 252 brush, and I'm kind of just flicking everything upwards. But again, whenever I start touching that lighter concealer, I'm not putting too much pressure, just because I do like to keep that color still there. And again, like nose contour, I like it to be very like sharp, so I am gonna let that concealer sit right at the bridge, and then I'm gonna blend it out later. In the same Vision Cream Cover, that lighter shade that I was just using, I'm starting to use that to kind of conceal and like slowly start brightening up just a little bit before I add that lighter shade again. It's kind of like eyeshadow, where everything, like you want to do your transition shade, and then like, I don't know, maybe like your crease colors, whatever. I always like to do like 2 or 3 of everything. I never like to just use like one shade because I feel like it looks a little flat. And you can see whenever I get closer to the nose contour, I'm not putting all the product on there directly. I'm kind of working my way from like the cheekbone area and then working my way inwards, just so there's not too much product on there, because I do want the lines to still kind of be visible. And you can see I'm using that L6, mixing with a tiny bit of the previous shade that I was just using. And I like to apply that where we all I feel like everybody has this, that little like hollow. I like to apply it there first, and then kind of work whatever is left over towards like the immediate like direct under eye. Just because I don't like to apply the product like directly under the eye, because I feel like the more product there, the more you're gonna crease. And I mean, creasing is normal, but I feel like that kind of helps prevent it just a little bit. And you can see I'm going with the like edge of the brush just to really sharpen up that nose. And same brush that I was using earlier for the foundation, it does have a little bit of product on it still. So I'm going over the concealer, as you can see, just patting everything in place. Just so I don't move it around too much, but I do want to really blend it out. And you can see whenever I'm going towards the nose, I'm kind of flicking towards the nose. And just to remind y'all, the video is like slightly sped up, just because I felt like if I were to keep it like normal motion, it would have been very, very long. But just know that like all of this, it takes a lot of time. It's a lot of blending. And I feel like if you were to add more at once, it would probably take you a lot shorter. I just really like to take my time. It's kind of bad that I take long sometimes, but it looks really good in the end, so that's all that matters. And I'm adding a little bit more of that lighter foundation just around the mouth and around the cheeks, just so the concealer can have something else to blend into. And that lighter foundation was also a bit peachy, so it's also kind of color correcting at the same time. And then this was that smaller Pat McGrath brush, and I'm literally just patting that concealer into place. And same brush, and this was the darker foundation and the lighter one. I did mix them just to get like her exact shade, and I'm just blending that down the neck. And I did cover the ears as well. To me, no matter how close the foundation is to your shade, I always like to bring it down the neck and the ears, especially if you're going to be taking photos. And again, I just kept that in there so you can really see how long I take blending. And I took a little bit more of that caviar and I wanted to focus it right at, like at the brow. Just because the eyeshadow that we're doing is going to be very like smoky and dark. And I'm going to take it all the way into the brow. So I kind of want to have that shadow blend into something. And this is Rosalia liquid lipstick from Holy Mother of Makeup. I did mix it with a little bit of that illuminating veil that was left over. And I want to say this is a MAC 130 brush. I do like to use liquid lipstick as blush, especially during the summer since it's super hot. It's liquid lipstick, it's dries matte, so it's going to stay on there. And you can just see that nice little color that it brings to the cheek, super pretty. And again, since I did mix it with that liquid illuminator, it is going to give the skin a nice sheen. And again, I just slowly add it on. And I'm keeping the blush very high, almost kind of into the eye, like the outer corner of the eye. And always on the nose, the chin. I go on the forehead sometimes, because I feel like if there's no blush, like if it's just on the cheek, it looks a little weird to me. And then a clean cosmetic sponge, I'm literally just tapping over everything. What this does is it's pressing the foundation and all the cream products into the skin before we apply any powder. And it's also picking up any excess product. So it looks more like skin. And then I'm just buffing out the under eye, making sure everything is super smooth before I apply any powder. And I'm gonna have her stay looking up just so the concealer doesn't start moving around. And I love that Pat McGrath brush, especially for under the eyes. And I don't know, I think it's a Luxie. I want to say it's like a foundation brush. And I'm using Janessa Myricks Evolution powder in the shade 2. It's that like light yellow peachy one. I did have, if you see on that little palette, there is another shade that was 5. And I used that, I think, just on like the forehead. But I didn't include that clip in here because I really didn't add that much.
Her cheeks look nice and rosy. Hey, Rose.
And this is MAC Give Me Sun Mineralized Skin Finish. It's very peachy, so we do like to use this almost as like her highlight, just to further set the under eye and the highlighted areas. And a Chanel, I want to say it's like a foundation buffer brush with MAC Sweet as Cocoa Blush. It's like a nice bronzy like red tone, and it has little flecks of gold glitter in it. And then Charlotte Tilbury Flawless Under Eye Powder in the shade Dark. And you can see it literally just blurs her out. I'm like, shout out to Aunt WTF, he was one who recommended that. And on lighter skin, it's actually really pretty to use that dark powder as a bronzer. And I just like to really add a good amount, just to really...
Yes. No brows and I'm still looking like that bitch.
So I did her brows off camera and I used Noche from Holy Mother of Makeup Divine Intervention palette. And any brush that you see me using with the yellow, it's from Cara Beauty and it's a brush set. And I'm using Danessa Myricks Blackout Color Fix. That is a liquid cream where it dries matte. Once it dries, it's literally not moving anywhere. And I'm just applying it. You can see I'm doing both eyes at once just because, again, it does dry down very quick. So I kind of like to get the product on there, buff it out, and then add something else on top. So you can see I'm kind of just placing it down with the pencil brush first, just to slightly blend it and get it where I want it. And then I am going to go in with a clean MAC 217 brush just to really buff out the edges. And since I do have concealer under her brow, I didn't set it or anything. So it is still a bit creamy, so I feel like it helps that color fix really blend. And then we were doing like a 90s, almost like super grungy halo eye. So I'm taking that in the inner corner of her eye. And again, you want to make sure that you keep most of that product like closer to the lash line. And again, it's super grungy, so we're kind of just buffing it out like whatever. And I'm kind of taking it again, like I said, how I did the nose contour really like harsh, like by the brow. It just really gives that shadow and the cream something to blend into. And I saw the Scott Edit do this like on his stories the other day, so I wanted to try that out where you're kind of baking the like brow highlight. I didn't really leave it on there too long just because, again, I've never tried that step. So right after this I did go in with Holy Mother of Makeup Divine Intervention palette and I use the shade Culture. So I'm kind of blending out the edges of that black base, and it's also buffing away any excess powder. And I want to say, I think that's a MAC 217 or A10 from Anastasia. I think it's an A10. It literally is like a 217, but a lot fluffier. And you can see I'm just really working the product into the brow and the edges of that color. And this is the shade Noche, which I also use on her brows with a MAC 221, where it's like a very skinny version of the brush I just used before this. And since it's very small, I feel like you can really get in like those tight areas. So again, really in that inner corner, that's what I'm using it for. Just so it doesn't really bring that color like too far out. And if it helps, start that color on the lid and feel your eye where that bone is. I'm kind of like going right on there and a little bit above. Especially if you have hooded eyes, literally take everything up to that bone. Same Noche color, I'm just using a MAC 224, which is like a bigger version of that last brush I used just to work on the outer corner, since I did want the outer corner to be a little bit more smoky. It's fine also if you do get any shadow in the middle, just because we are going to clean that up in a little bit. And this was a shade Shrine, which is lighter than Culture and not as warm. So again, it's kind of just buffing out any edges. And this was that same blackout color fix. And I used, I think it was a MAC 239. And you can see I'm kind of keeping it only on the outer corner and the inner corner just because I did want to do a halo eye just like I did at the top. But then I looked at it from far away and then I changed my mind. So you'll see me in a little bit where I kind of just buff it out all over. So if anything, literally just start outer corner, bring it all the way in, and that's it. Yeah, you can see right here I decided to fill it in. Yeah. So this is that shade Noche, again from that palette, and the same brush that I used for the color fix, and I'm just setting that cream so it doesn't move anywhere. And I like to really, again, pack it on right at that lash line just to really make it super deep. And that shade Noche isn't black. I want to say it's like a really, really deep, like charcoal. And those same browns that I used earlier, Shrine and Culture, with the 217, just to buff out any edges again. When you're working with colors like black, I feel like that's all it is. It's just a lot of blending, adding, blending, blending more. And this was that same concealer that I used earlier, the really light one, L6 from Pat McGrath. I'm using like a little, it's kind of a dense, fluffy brush, just to kind of do that little spotlight in the middle of the eye. And I am wiping some of it off like on my hand whenever I'm like not touching your face anymore, just because I don't want too much product. And I don't want it to like move like too far out, if that makes sense. I'm taking it all the way up to the brow though, just to really make it stand out. And before I apply any shimmer, I'm applying Shrine just to really blend out the edges between the concealer and then the black eyeshadow. And that was a MAC 286 brush that I'm using. You can honestly keep it like that, like keep it matte. It was actually really pretty like that. I just wanted to add that yellow shimmer from the palette just so it kind of matched her jewelry. Okay, and I'm taking Holy Mother of Makeup Prep and Set Spray with just like a fluffy eyeshadow brush. And I'm taking the shade Rika from her palette. It's like a really yellow gold, almost like antique, like where it's like kind of leaning a little green. I'm taking that, I'm wetting it also, just to give it that more like metallic, like foil finish. And I'm using the brush just to kind of get the color on there, and then I'm going in with my finger just to really pop that color on there. I feel like whenever you use your finger, like your body temperature kind of warms it up and makes it a little bit more vibrant, especially shimmers. And then I'm taking the shade Noche from the same palette and just kind of buffing out the edges of that shimmer shade. And I'm kind of just putting that color mainly at the lash line and then blending it out. And then whenever I'm closer to the brow bone, I am using that shade Shrine. And these are called I Couldn't Be Gappier lashes from Cami Wayne. And also the ones that fell are called Underneath It All. And that lip pencil that I'm using is called Nevermore. It's from the Aaliyah collection that MAC did. It's like a blackened purple liner. And just make sure that your pencil is like really sharp, just so whenever you do the lines, it's like super crisp. And I like to go back and forth just to really get the line super defined. And then I'm going to be going in with a lipstick called Stone, also for MAC. It's like I'd say like a really gray brown. And we were going for like, again, like 90s kind of makeup, so I felt like that really cool tone, like ashy almost lip, was like super in, especially with the dark liner. And then I'm gonna go in with Naturally Transformed, which is like a really yellow brown. It's my favorite color. They did discontinue it, but MAC also has a color called Kinkster, which is like the same but a little bit darker. And then this is called Wild Extract. It's a frosty green. I think this one is discontinued. I just wanted to apply that like really sheer, just so it can kind of have that gold tint that the eyeshadow had. And then just to really go back in and reinforce the line, I'm taking Coffee Eye Pencil. That's also from MAC. And then I just wanted a little bit more gloss, so that is Grand Illusion. It's like a Grand Illusion gloss, but it's called Let's Roll. Let's Roll or Let's Rock? I think it's Let's Rock. It's like a red, but it has like that green reflect to it. And I didn't apply too much. I kind of just wanted like a sheer layer of that also, just to kind of warm up the lip a little bit, but still also keep that green. And I got this in here too, just to show you, like, whenever I'm done with the eyes and the lips, I do always go back and add more blush or see what else, like, I can add to it. You don't really have to do this if you don't want to, because I feel like it's just extra. And then this is the MAC Shape and Shade palette. I'm taking that light peach just to kind of further brighten her up. You don't really have to do this if you don't want to, but again, it kind of just adds that little extra touch to it. But that's going to be the end of the video. If you have any questions, let me know. Like, follow, subscribe, comment, all that stuff. And thanks for watching.